Hey there, I have something important to tell you. You don't need a dumbphone. In fact, you don't need to do a lot of the stuff that was mentioned in the book Digital Minimalism. Digital minimalism is definitely the new trend. People are starting to bring back old technologies like iPod, MP3 players, e-ink devices, and dumb phones instead of the shiniest and the newest of technologies. And I can't lie, I'm all on this bandwagon. I love esoteric technology and I love stationaries. In fact, collecting these things has probably become a hobby of mine. So I personally have a iPod Nano. I also have a MP3 player and I have a lot of notebooks. So I have all of these, and that's not even half of what I actually own. This is just what I took with me on my trip to Toronto. So I have a little flip notes for just little reminders. I have this fancy Japanese graph notebook. I have this Hobonichi Techno planner. I also have 3 bullet journals. All that to say, I'm definitely on this digital minimalism bandwagon. Yeah, I've come to really enjoy getting older technologies and experimenting them in the hopes to escape from the enslavement of modern technology and feel the freedom of everyday life. But here is the bad news that I have for you today. From many years of experimenting with these tools and adjuncts to help reduce screen time and reduce technology use, what I've found is that they all help to various degrees, but only in the short term. In the long term, they haven't really proven to be all that helpful. I always find myself back in this loop and falling for the trap of these technological devices. And let me tell you, I've really tried everything under the sun to control my technological use. I've tried dumb phones, flip phones. I have 3 or 4 different apps on my phone to help control screen time and limit different apps. My phone is in grayscale. I disable all the notifications. I have probably even more stuff on my laptop. All these Chrome extensions, I've tried them all. And after so many years of experimenting, but also doing my own therapy, reading books and listening to podcasts, I've finally understood why. So here's the thing. If your problematic technology use is because of addiction, then none of these external solutions are going to fix the underlying problem. Now we know these devices are intrinsically addictive and they're designed to get you hooked. It may be difficult to distinguish whether your problem is an external problem, meaning all these external distractions, or if your problem is internal, meaning you're struggling with an addiction to technology. But there are definitely some telltale signs that can help identify what your root problem is. Personally, my issue is definitely I'm struggling with technology addiction. A very obvious sign of it is I've tried everything under the sun to control the external distraction, but the problems still persist. Another sign of an addictive behavior is once you've noticed that there are harmful effects associated with this behavior, yet you still can't help but to keep going back to that. And I think it's helpful to kind of define what addiction is, and the definition itself, I think, can provide some insight into whether this is what you're dealing with. So this is a definition that I took from the book Digital Minimalism. So addiction is defined as a condition in which a person engages in use of a substance, like nicotine or alcohol, or a behavior for which the rewarding effects provide a compelling incentive to repetitively pursue the behavior despite detrimental consequences. So once we've acknowledged that we might be dealing with an addiction, we just have to be honest with ourselves and accept the fact that we are addicted. So once we've done that, step 1, acknowledging the addiction, we move on to step 2, which is kind of understanding where addiction comes from. Now, it's probably oversimplifying, but this generalization has helped me personally see where these behaviors are rooted in. Addictions are driven at its core by negative feelings and emotions. And these can include feeling stressed, feeling depressed or sad, being bored, feeling lonely or unworthy or unlovable. So those are all negative emotions that are very painful for us to experience. So of course, if there is an easy way to escape, we will choose to do that. And I think everyone deals with these negative feelings and beliefs because that's just the price of living. But some people may have developed healthier ways to cope with these feelings than others. When you don't have a lot of tools in your toolbox to deal with these negative feelings, then if there is an easy, quick way to escape or distract yourself so that you don't have to feel the pain of loneliness or stress or boredom, then of course you would do it, right? Of course you would reach for that cigarette or that drink or scroll through Instagram because that way you don't have to feel the pain. So once we see addiction from that perspective, then it becomes quite evident what the solution is. So what's the opposite of escaping? Well, it's to face the discomfort head on. Honestly, it's probably going to be one of the most difficult and courageous thing that you have to do because for years you've learned quick ways to escape these feelings. So now that you have to face it, it's going to be extremely difficult. But what I like to tell myself in these moments is, this is what it feels to get better. This is what it feels to grow. It's painful, but this is what it feels to get better. And that helps. That helps kind of get through that hurdle. So step 2, sort of understanding the general root cause of your addictive behavior. Step 3 is you have to face it and feel it. Now, this is the hardest part. I'm 29 now. I've struggled with internet addiction for over 15 years probably, with a lot of therapy, a lot of reading, doing psychedelics, integrating psychedelic experiences. I've finally got to a place where I'm able to sit with some of these uncomfortable feelings. So you have to be patient. You're not going to get there overnight. But I'm going to give a list of tools that I've found to be really helpful in my case. For everyone dealing with addiction, I definitely recommend seeing a therapist on top of doing all these work yourself. So how do we actually feel or acknowledge these uncomfortable feelings? You do need a certain degree of mindfulness because you do need to be aware that, okay, I'm having an internal trigger that prompts me to reach for some distraction, and then you have to stop yourself from reaching for that distraction so you can sit with the feeling. So it does require some basic mindfulness and a certain degree of self-control, right? You do have to really not touch that phone or that distraction and sit with the feeling, even if it's just for 5 minutes, in order to get a little bit of progress. It might be within seconds that you start feel uneasy, like you want to do something, you want to walk around, you want to check your phone, you want to, do the dishes, anything but to sit there. But you just have to do it. Start with 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and go from there. If it's too intense, you can't focus. There are some tools that I've learned that can bring these discomfort sensations down a notch. One thing that can be helpful is Wim Hof breathing or box breathing. There's also these 2 quick inhale, 1 long exhale breathing that Andrew Huberman has talked about. So a few other things that you can do is emotional freedom technique, which is tapping. So tapping on the different meridian rhythm. Other things is just touching yourself, like touching different areas of yourself, maybe your face, maybe your chest, shoulders. That again also has shown to stimulate the vagus nerve, which can help us relax. Another thing you can do, which might be a little weird that I've recently learned is to stimulate the vocal cord. It helps promote the parasympathetic system. What you do is you inhale, big inhale, then you exhale by saying voo, so kind of like this. Voo. And it doesn't have to be long. You just try any of these things. Usually I do one of those things and it actually does help me feel a little better. Then you sit with the sensation. And some prompts that are really helpful to interact with these sensations is asking questions like, where is it exactly? Is it in my throat? Is it behind my eyes? Is it on my chest? And does it have a color? Does it have a shape? Does it have a texture? Is it moving around in my body? Is it talking or saying something to me? Does it have a smell? All of those things are really helpful to get in touch with these sensations and really put qualities on them. 99% of the hard work is done at this point, right? Like once you're able to just sit there and try to feel the sensations, most of the hard work is done. And then you can acknowledge it, right? You can tell this sensation, which is a part of you, that you see it, you hear it, you feel it, and you love it, right? It's a part of you that is there for a reason. It's maybe no longer serving you, but probably was there in the first place to somehow protect you. Maybe you don't understand why or how it's protecting you, but that's okay. You still send it some love and let it know that you understand it's part of you and that you love it anyway. Now we're kind of getting a little bit into the IFS territory, internal family system. And these prompts I learned from doing IFS with my therapist. Literally every single time I do it, this sensation just diminishes very significantly. Uncomfortable sensations are just ways that your body is trying to get your attention. And once you've acknowledged it and you've given it attention, then it goes away and you feel better. You don't feel that pain anymore. Once you are able to do that, and then with practice, every time a difficult sensation comes up, you'll be able to sit there with it. And then with the help of your therapist, then you're able to explore deeper and do some trauma work, right? These things most likely originated from some trauma at some point in your life. And then once you're able to actually sit with it, that opens a lot of doors and opportunities to work with it and explore where the trauma comes from and then actually heal from it. That's when you can actually implement all of these productivity tips that are mentioned in these YouTube videos or in these books like Digital Minimalism or Stolen Focus. Getting down to the root of addiction and what you can do practically finally bridges that gap, at least for myself, right? They propose a lot of the practical tips for the superficial stuff like decluttering or putting your phone in another room or having all these apps on your phone to help limit distractions. But none of this actually addresses the root cause of how to embrace these negative feelings and how to heal from these negative emotions. So that I think is like a big missing piece in, at least in my personal addiction recovery journey. I am still struggling a lot with technology, but doing these has finally made a longer lasting difference. So that's why I wanted to make this video to tell you guys, like, no, you don't need to watch another productivity video. You don't need another watch. You don't need another dumb phone. You don't need another fancy notebook. I mean, unless you really like it like me. Like, you will do anything to avoid having to sit with those feelings. But that's what you actually need to do. This is what it feels to get better. I'm really grateful to be back after such a long hiatus. A lot has happened in my personal and professional life. Hopefully I can give an update in another video. Oh yeah, I just want to mention at the end that I still really do recommend these books on digital minimalism. Actually, my 3 favorites are Stolen Focus, Digital Minimalism, and Indistractable. They're all really amazing books, but I just feel like the advice in the book would be so much easier to follow if we also address the underlying emotional side of it at the same time. One more thing. I do realize that I'm talking about a very complex topic of addiction that I'm probably oversimplifying, and I'm also probably not fully qualified to talk about it, but I am a physician, so I think I'm a little bit somewhat qualified to talk about it, but definitely a lot of these things that I share today is really just from personal experience and doing my own therapy and doing a lot of reading. I think everything that I shared still holds true, but you definitely do need a therapist to help you work through these things. And of course, this video is more specific about addiction to technology, which has a lot of similarities to addiction to a substance, but it's still very different because a lot of substances can have physical withdrawals on top of psychological withdrawal, and the treatment would be very different. So yeah, just a little disclaimer. Again, thank you for watching and take care.